take a bite, and then I want it more. Baby, just take a bite.
Welcome to episode 2 of Pop Teeth. I'm Mimah, and this week I'm talking about how to try to keep it all together through structure, stress, and above all, the songwriting. Everyone loves the words independent artist until you realise that you're your own manager, photographer, videographer, producer, business manager, lawyer, stylist, makeup artist, hairstylist, whatever they're called, and you realise you have to do it all yourself. I always imagined being a DIY artist as someone who is very free, able to do what they want. You know, you have to graft a lot to kind of get the opportunities, and you know, maybe you don't get put in as many rooms unless you know people. But what I think it means now is that you have to create a solid foundation in order to step into the real business world. What I mean by that is no label or manager, unless they really look at you and think I can mold you into something that is going to be very, very profitable, no one is likely to take a chance on you as an artist unless you've figured out your artistry first. I listened to a really interesting podcast the other day that was talking about how, what, when and why the big pop girlies are the pop girlies. And a lot of it has to do with kind of your ethos with your brand. Visuals are massive, and then of course the music. But the host of the podcast argues that music is becoming a very, very visual medium, and I would absolutely agree with that. Like, we want to see music now. We want to see the outfits, we want to see the music videos, and everything's just getting bigger and bolder and crazier. So if you scale that back to being a DIY artist, all of the things you have to do for yourself, you learn from those things when you start out. So yeah, okay, it's a labor of love being all of those, wearing all of those hats, manager, photographer, blah blah blah. But through putting on those hats at the early stages of your career, you figure out exactly how you want other people to work for you with regards to those areas. So if I've spent the past 8 years doing my own makeup, doing my own styles for like photo shoots, and you know, planning all my visions and all of this kind of thing, by the time it gets to a place where I'm actually working with people in the music industry to offer all of those services, I can give them a clear vision of what my artistry is all about. So DIY used to mean to me, oh, you've just got to do it all yourself. But now it means figure it out yourself. Figure out who you are as an artist. You know, most of the big girlies have been doing it for like 10 years plus before they get really, really pushed into the like forefront of the pop world. And that's because they've crafted every little inch of their artistry themselves before they've had another team join them. Now this links us to a place where we have to consider productivity. When you're a small independent artist, or any independent artist, and you have to carry the weight of the business on your own back, or with small collaborations, there is an awful lot of work to do, right? Saying that, if you enjoy the work, it feels less laboursome, tiresome, whatever the words are. But I think a lot of young artists put so much pressure on themselves to overwork at this stage in their career. This stage of your career shouldn't be about getting as many people to notice you as possible. It should be about figuring out your identity as an artist. What do you sonically sound like? What do you visually look like? What are your morals that you stand for? What's, you know, the vibe of you? Can you be summed up as an artist in like a sentence? And then I would look at how marketable you are. And that's when the productivity of marketing should come in later. I feel like so many young artists burn themselves out by marketing themselves too soon before they know exactly what product they're trying to sell, aka themselves. And I've done this, like, you know, I get a song out and I spent loads of money like on ads and PR and stuff like that, but people are going to maybe hear the song and think, wow, that's a cool song, I really like that, but they're not going to engage with you as an artist. And therefore you spent lots of time and lots of productivity on stuff that, energy that you could have been spending focusing more on your songwriting. I'm in a trial year at the moment with management to see if we're a good match for each other. And I started off this year, after 8 years of doing this all myself, I started off this year saying, okay, how do you want me to approach this? What do you want me to focus on? Thinking I'm going to have to be doing everything that I've been doing before. And he just said, I just want you to be an artist and songwrite this year. And it was kind of weird because I was like, so you don't expect me to do X, Y, and Z and push this and push that and record all this and get all this like content out. I said, no, just be an artist and songwrite, write as much as you can. And once we have that material, we can then start the productivity of the marketing and the release and all of that. So, and I don't think anyone ever advised me to be productive, but I just see in our world of kind of young independent artists, I just see everyone pushing themselves to limits that, in my opinion, aren't quite necessary. I think keep creating. And my peers that I see that are doing really well are people who just really, really love to engage with their music. They keep making music, they keep making visuals. They're not the people that are spending loads of money on advertising, or they're not the people that are just, trying to chase followers and stuff like that. They're putting all of the care into their work. And I think that is where the mindset needs to be at this early stage. So I want to talk a little bit about how you find structure in all of that chaos. So I feel like I'm rambling a bit today, but I briefly touched on that we have to wear many different hats as a little baby artist. And so when you wear all those hats and you're basically running a business that isn't paying much money, and you're probably working another job on the side for a little bit of income support, and you're probably maybe studying or, having a life outside of this, the business doesn't run like a normal 9 to 5. So within that, how do you find structure to make sure you are progressing and staying productive in the right ways? I know in the previous episode I talked about ebb and flow, kind of leaning into my music when it's feeling great, giving it space when I feel like I'm not super passionate about it. But realistically, that is not a good business model for having consistency within your work. So I've always focused on the main things for my artistry that I have stayed incredibly consistent with. And that is, number one, my vocal and my physical training. I've stayed in dance class the whole way through since starting Mimah, and I have done my voice work and voice training consistently at least 4 to 5 times a week since I've started Mimah. They're muscles. I want to keep them going. If my instrument is my body, I need to keep that really strong and really ready to go. So those are the basics that I've always had in place, and realistically they don't take that long. Vocal practice can range from 15 to an hour and a half a day, and that fits in everywhere. I can do that whilst I'm washing up, I can do it while I'm cooking. I just whack on a video that guides me through it and I do my vocal warm-ups. Other than that, social media has been something that I really, really struggle with. I don't get excited to post. I said before, I enjoy the photography aspect and the visual aspect, but I'm not a content creator. I'm a pop artist, and so social media is a big burnout. And I've tried things like putting schedules together, or keep trying to get content to push it out there, but where I don't have that passion or drive for it, I really struggle. So that is something that lacks big structure in my life. I tend to only post if I've got an announcement to make or if there's something I genuinely want to share. And so that's why doing this podcast is more enjoyable for me, because I hope that I'm able to reach a lot more people and engage with them and, talk to other artists about how they're dealing with their own structures. So in the rambles of today, I guess what I'm trying to say is that within the structure of things, you can find what works for you. So if I don't necessarily like posting Instagram lives or reels or updates or all of this kind of thing unless they're necessary for a show or an announcement, it's taken me a while to figure out and many attempts, but YouTube and podcasting and kind of having this stream of consciousness kind of talking at you guys is what I enjoy. It means I can actually think about my work and all of that kind of thing. So I have found passion in this, even though it's like the second episode. It's something that I can see fitting into my week. So now I've added that to my structure. I think there's a lot of throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks with being a DIY independent artist at the beginning. And it's taken me like 8 years to get to a point where I want to do this podcast and feel comfortable in my skin doing it. But my point is, when you find something you like, add it to the structure. So I like my dance classes, I like my vocal exercises, I like the podcast, I like photo shoots, but they're not like weekly things. I enjoy writing, big one. I used to only write when there was like a inspiration for it. Now I write at least a song a week if possible. If it's a really busy schedule, once every 2 weeks, but that's in the schedule now. That's a non-negotiable. It's the product. I have to keep making it. So I've had to create some kind of structure, or honestly I would lose the plot. There's got to be some sort of ongoing theme within this business, yet for me it's not quite a 9 to 5 yet. Some days I don't stick to it. Some days I just don't acknowledge the music at all, which has changed a lot recently, but throughout the years has been something that I've kind of not been so on top of, but it's always been there, and it's been something that I've kept going. So I feel like it's time to take it seriously now. So my version of schedule is try out lots of things. Try out lots of things that engage with the community you want to build as an artist. Try lots of things that enhance your performance as an artist, and try lots of things that support your artistry and your craft as an artist. So your songwriting, your drawing, your fashion, everything like that. Just structure those things in that you care about, and they will slowly build into a proper routine and business schedule for your work. So now I want to talk about stress and the creative mind. Like, let's be real, this part looks so fun. The photo shoots, the video shoots, the performing different countries, the collaborations, all of it is really cool. But it can be really heavy. There's been performances I've had to do when I've gone through like really heavy personal stuff, and I've had to, show up for a crowd and give a good show. There's been times where I've been sick and I've had to go and perform, or my self-esteem isn't good, or I don't feel like I've got anything to write about, or there's a lot of stress that comes with doing everything yourself. And I'm someone who overanalyzes things a lot, and if I spend time with something I can get like really deep into the root of it, which can be good if you're a detective or something. But when it's your own work and you go over it and over it and over it and over it again, it can be quite hard to like have a really clear perspective of the product you're making, of the vision you have. And so you have to start to trust yourself really deeply. And I think that's something as an artist you kind of figure out along the way, but it's something that has to build. And I think that's why you see a lot of, new artists, they'll head one direction, and you'll see all of their Instagram will be this theme, and they'll write this style of music, and this is how they'll sound sonically, and this is how they'll look. And then after 6 months of that, they get sick of it. And then you see them wipe their kind of internet footprint, and you'll see them start again in a whole different trajectory. And I think that's really good. Again, that kind of goes back to me saying throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. But I think you have to really sit with something for it to grow bigger. And if you sit with something and push through kind of all that awkwardness and the heavy stuff and the frustration, you will kind of find the path that you want to be on. But that comes with a lot of stress, because the product you're constantly working on is yourself. It's your emotions, it's your expressions. And it can be easy to be very super critical of that, or say you're not doing enough work, or there's no one to tell you, okay, go take your lunch break, all of this kind of thing. And I think that pressure comes from a lot of different areas. Social media, I think, could get very, very addictive. Like I say, personally, I don't have it, the addiction to it, but if you are doing really, really well on socials, you get a big following, people are loving your videos, you're making the short form content over and over and over again, there's a pressure to keep that up. Looking at numbers, how many people are listening to my song now? Like, there is a kick out of that. I remember releasing something and there was loads of people listening at one time, or like one of my music videos went from like a couple hundred views from one day to like 6,000, and you get a real rush from that. You get a real validation. You think, okay, this is cool, and then you'll hear crickets for like the rest of the time. So the way that stress plays into your productivity is so major too. You need to be like so okay with just doing the work and allowing this response to just exist. You, at the end of the day, are putting out a product that is allowed to be judged. You're putting out art, it's allowed to make people feel different ways, and people are entitled to how they feel about that. Now, how they respond to that is, you know, if they're polite about it or not is their own karma, but there's a lot of pressure to put yourself out there as an artist and be criticized for it. And I think if you're doing this online, as most of us as artists are now, we're not making physical things to sell and people go home and listen to them in private and then, you know, maybe write an article about it or something like that. No, it's like instant feedback, it's instant listening, and that's a lot of pressure. And I think, circling back to how structure helps with that, is that you stay on your own path, you stay on your own timeline. You release a song, you think, great, Monday, back in the studio, Tuesday, rehearsing my vocals again, Wednesday, I'm taking a dance class to get stronger and fitter. And if you stay in that, you're basically just keeping the machine going. And if you stay in that, you're basically just conditioning yourself to stay focused and allow what's what to be as it should. Some weeks I feel like an absolute machine, getting everything done. I'm like so on top of it. Some weeks I can't even look at my emails, I can't face anything. And so having that structure in place of what's going to be your foundation, I think is something that is necessary and something that keeps the boat afloat. Lastly, I just want to talk about the songwriting through it all. Despite all of this chaos, despite things maybe not being as structured as properly, despite things not being as productive as we want, despite it being stressful and self-reflective and self-critical, somehow the songs still manage to come through that, and sometimes the songs manage to come because of all that. It can be incredibly frustrating if you've set aside the time to songwrite and no inspiration's coming, or everything you write and everything that's coming out on the keys is just crap to you. Again, I think it's sitting with yourself until you find a place of consciousness and a place of openness to let that inspiration enter. The funny thing is, I used to believe that my songs would just come when I go through something very emotional and I just have to write about it because I'm an artist and I'm suffering. However, ironically, the songs come better now because my structure and schedule is in place. I think because I've created that foundation of support, my voice is in a good place and I'm kind of going out and doing my things, and then I sit down to songwrite. I think, okay, cool. My skill set's there now to just be able to write. And I was always very intimidated by using like a DAW or like, and I use Logic now. I used to be so like resistant. I used to be like, no, you do it, Mr. Producer or Mrs. Producer. I'm just gonna, write the top line and I'm gonna tell you what my melody ideas are, but you're gonna put it in, because it was new to me and I was just like resistant to learning. But then I bought the software when I was still at uni and I just fucked around on it. I just messed around on it, and over the past few years of doing it, just messing around and learning things and Googling things and watching videos, I've come so far and can write like a full demo, my own beat, my own keys, everything played in myself. And that's been really rewarding. So again, what I'm trying to say is now I have the skill set to songwrite. I can songwrite more instead of just finding like a beat on YouTube and then writing a lyrical idea and then taking that to a producer and rewriting the whole beat behind it. I can now really express what my vision for the sound is sonically, or the songs are sonically. And that's really cool. And I think that really influences my writing, is having the freedom and the foundation to write. I write my best stuff when all of those scheduling structures have been hit. And that's because I am training myself in this business. And what's most rewarding is that you go through all of this stress and this lack of inspiration and all of that jazz. And then once you write a song that you're really proud of, it makes all of that worth it. When you create a campaign for a new album or a new single, and you get to see the artwork and you do the photo shoot for it, or you do a video, like a music video is so rewarding, and you see all that hard work, that just sets the cycle all up again, and you just want to do it over and over. And you know, sometimes music is the only thing that can quiet all that noise. And I think I speak for a lot of musicians when I say this is our only way for true expression for how we're living in this universe. And so it's really important that we keep going. I feel like I've rambled a lot today. I've had a bit of a chaotic week, but I just wanted to kind of share my main points, is that it's good to structure yourself. It's okay to be stressed and just keep songwriting in spite of all of that and because of all of that. I'd love to invite you guys to share kind of your chaos within the music business world in the comments. And next time we're going to be talking about like how to separate self-belief from self-delusion and kind of what motivates you to keep going. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one.